Good afternoon, YouTube! Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and don't buy a new Mac until after you've watched this video, especially if you're going to do AAA gaming, especially cyberpunk. And speaking of which, the Ultimate Edition is what's coming to the Mac. This is where we need to talk. Specs, of course, we have nothing for the Mac version that's about to be released in 2025. They are not releasing any specs either until either closer to or on the release date. Makes it very hard to buy a new Mac right now, especially with the new cool M4s, eh? Anyways, I myself would like to get a new Mac this year, provided I can get the financing. And if I can, then yep, I'm going to go for one badass mother of a Mac that will actually run this game properly. And then that gets me that much closer to be able to say bye-bye to my PC. Maybe. There are other games I like too. And fortunately, they're all on my PC because, well, no Mac versions. Anyways. So Windows 10 for the PC. An i7-12700 or a Ryzen 7 7800X. Basically, you need an 8-core processor with all performance cores, minimum, okay, on the recommended side. On the minimum side, of course, you can get away with a quad core. It's going to be really crappy gameplay, though. Even with a 6 or 8 gig video card, it's going to still be really crappy with a quad or a 6-core processor. If you want decent playability, you need to really have some balls under the hood, all right? Now, they're talking also 16 gigabytes of memory. That's just for the application itself. That's it. It doesn't include video power. And remember, you're running a Mac, okay, in this case. But an 8 gig video card as well is kind of like the minimum recommended. See, these specs are the minimum recommended. And that gets you medium graphics, 1080p, and no ray tracing turned on, none of that crap. Now, I've got ray tracing the whole nine in my laptop. That's a PC, and I play the original Cyberpunk, okay? And I really like it, and I get really good frames per second depending on how I set the game up. And it's a matter of two is how much graphic quality are you willing to part with in order to play the game and still have a really great experience. Well, it depends on your computer. I have the processing power. I have 64 gigs of RAM, which is way overkill. As far as the game itself goes, but I have only a 4 gig graphics card in there, okay? But I do have the 8-core processor, more than enough balls in that thing on the base and the overclock, but my NVIDIA graphics card is only a 4 gig 3050, okay? You should have an 8 gig, technically, okay, even for the original Cyberpunk, all right? And you actually need more than that if you want to get up into the higher levels of, like, you know, high and ultra ray tracing. You really need a lot of video, and you're going to need a lot more processing power, and you're going to need more RAM as well. Like I said, these specs on here for minimum recommended are solely based upon 1080p medium, at least for the recommended. I don't know what it technically is in total for the minimum, but it's going to be cheesy probably. Okay, so probably below 1080p or maybe 1080p low settings, okay? Now, I want to take you for a quick little walk into my world of PC and with Cyberpunk. And hopefully our FPS counter also decides to behave itself and work. Now, with that, you got to realize when you buy a computer, if the games you are running, say 16 gigs of RAM, for example, like this, you don't buy a machine with 16 gigs of RAM. You buy a machine with about 48 gigs of RAM because your operating system is going to use a certain amount of that RAM. macOS 15.2 Sequoia is 6.8 gigs of RAM to itself and no longer supports gamer mode like it did in Sonoma. I found that out by playing a couple of games today that gamer mode has been removed in Sequoia. So we don't get RAM released to make up for lack thereof. Where before we did. Well, now we don't. So that's a problem. Anyway, so as far as my settings currently, right now, I'm at medium. Texture quality is at high, but I can actually gain some more FPS by just putting the texture quality down at low. And I go for my video here, I'm at 1600 by 900 full screen. Okay, we apply these settings and we hit continue. Now, with the thing there is you have to have your system RAM available, and then you add on what the game wants for the app or the program, whatever the program is. And then in this case, also video power for a Mac. You need the extra VRAM for video, so you need extra RAM in your computer for that too. So that's where you're talking about 31 gigs to just do this new version of Cyberpunk on the Mac, if the specs are going to be kind of the same sort of thing. If the specs are much higher, well then we're going to need a hell of a lot more than 32 gigs of RAM. We're talking 64 is the next stage up, because 48 is not going to be enough to last you even 5 years on the Mac. So that's going to be in itself more issues. And this is why we have to wait until Cyberpunk's released, especially for those who want to play it, to find out, hey, what's going to happen? What do I need for a Mac in total for the reality check? So I'm going to go for a little drive here after I'm done smashing the crap out of my car. So I'm seeing 65, 66, 67, 68. Okay, so I'm right up there in the 60s. I mean, this is way more than playable. Alright, now this is playing it right off of a PC. I share my 4K screen with my PC and my Mac. Okay, now if I want to squeeze a little bit more out of the Charmin here, okay, we'll go back into our settings, and we'll go back to graphics and we hit low. Okay, and then we have custom after that. So if I go just the low setting here, resume the game. '79, '81, '82, '82. Smash the bricks. Now, my graphics are still doing really good, right? So what else can we do to possibly get things going a little bit better? Well, we can take another look at our screen resolution and try 1440 by 900. That will shrink us in a little bit, but okay, maybe 14 by 1050. A little bit too much in. 1366 by 768 brings us into a bigger picture again. Let's see what that does for us. 91, 90, 89. Ooh. Graphic quality is still holding up really well though. 95, 93. And I wrecked that tree really good. So, with doing that, I mean, hey, it's doable, man. It really totally is. Get back up into medium graphics though, same resolution. That improved things a bit more for graphics. 76, 75. This is extremely playable. Okay, that is very acceptable speeds for the FPS, considering I'm dealing with a 4 gig graphic card instead of 8 where I should actually be, right? But if I bring it up to 1080p medium, all right, we'll get into that. I'm trying to help you guys out here, okay? Just keep that in mind. Video. Okay, so 1920 by 1080, medium graphics, apply, and we're back in, and we hit resume. Graphics have improved quite a bit. 50, 53, 54, and nice! Better be careful, I won't have a car left pretty soon. I love smashing stuff up. Okay, so 54, we're in the 50s. Now that's a lot better than I can say for any Mac I've seen doing it even under parallels or crossover, because they can't even do that good. But 50s is pretty decent. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even better, okay? You don't lose a lot of graphic quality even going to a lower resolution, and even if you're dumping from medium to low, or even staying on medium, you're still going to be able to, you know, work with it. But ray tracing, you don't want to activate any of the ray tracing stuff, or you're just asking for a can of whoop butt, because it's not going to work properly. It is going to get like down to 30 FPS, maybe 31 if you're lucky. Okay, I've already done that earlier today too. So before you buy a new Mac, especially for gaming aspects, check out all the current games on Apple's website. See what the specs require. Oh, you just need an M2. That's not good enough. Works on this Mac. That's not good enough. Full specs. You got to know, do you have enough CPU, GPU, and RAM in the computer? And don't look at the RAM as being, well, the game only wants 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I got like 16 gigs. You're not good enough, because that's the game application. That has nothing to do with the video requirements, okay? That's application requirement. Then you have video requirement, and you need VRAM for that. And guess where all your video RAM comes from? Exactly the same places your system RAM comes from, the same chips, right? Because it's all shared because of the integrated CPU and GPU, okay? So then you got to look at resolutions. Your resolutions change the requirements, which also can do you better or worse for performance, okay? Again, this gets you medium graphics 1080p recommended, and it's probably going to get you medium to low on the minimum. And it's going to be a huge dump in FPS between minimum and recommended, okay? So, but you need the recommended setup of a machine to just get to the recommended for those minimum states, okay, of what they would be by factory default. If you want to increase your resolution, you want to add on ray tracing, you want to add on the other stuff, you better have a pretty honky-tonk Mac, okay? I'm not kidding you. And you're going to need a lot more RAM too, because it is going to suck it up. This game, even in the version I'm playing, can easily chew up near 30 gigabytes of RAM just for the app side, and then a lot more than that even for the video side once you start expanding its universe of, I want 4K, I want Ultra, okay, and it's just going to go, give me more. That's exactly what it does. It's an eater. Kind of like Windows friggin' 11, man. 10.8 gigs to the desktop. This is like 6.83 to the desktop. And we're not getting our RAM back anymore for game mode because it doesn't exist. Okay? We lost that out of Sonoma. Sonoma still has it, but this OS Sequoia doesn't. And so we need the system RAM, we need the application RAM, we need the graphics RAM, and all that together just to play this at recommended, just in the memory requirement alone, comes up to 31 gigs of RAM. You don't have 31 gig, you ain't going to be doing it. Not properly. It's going to be really, and it's going to push you down to this side, the 12 gig by 6 gig. Well, 12 and 6 is still 18 gigs plus your OS. Okay, so what's 18 and rounded off to 7, right? So 18 and 7, 18, 19, 25 gigs. Okay, and we do have machines that have, like, not quite that. But you get the idea where we're coming from here? Be very careful before buying a Mac. Be very careful before buying a PC when it comes to the requirements for the games you want to play. You have to have above. Now, I bought my PC. It came with 16 by 512 configuration. As far as the RAM and the drive went, I upgraded to 3 terabytes of storage, and I went to 64 gigs of RAM. I am absolutely for that. But my video card is 4 gig, and you just saw it yourself and heard me telling you the numbers of what we're getting at different settings based on that PC playing the original Cyberpunk. This one's a hell of a lot more raunchier, okay, than the other ones. So, you know, you got to take those into consideration. But both of them can equally get just as raunchy. Even the original Cyberpunk, when you start running those graphics up, you better have the RAM to support her, man, because it's gonna suck her back. Okay, and I really wish I could put my activity monitor up on my PC while we were doing Cyberpunk at the different settings, and you can see how much the RAM actually starts getting annihilated out of my computer as we're changing settings. And then we could actually give you a fair shake of, you know, ultra setting, ray tracing, the whole 9, down to 10 FPS. But look, it looks so awesome, but I can barely even move. Okay, because I need a hell of a lot more even processing power at that point beyond my 8-core chip. I'm gonna need like a lot more. So, and it wants all performance cores. It doesn't look for efficiencies. Okay, it wants performance cores. And if you don't have enough, you got a problem too. So these things are things you need to consider when it comes to buying a computer, whether it's a Mac or a PC. But specifically for you Mac heads, don't buy a new Mac before watching this video, especially if you're playing games, because you need to know all about how your Mac really works. And hopefully we were able to break it down enough for you. First of all, you need to know how much the operating system chews. We already told you that for Sequoia 15.2. Next update, probably going to chew totally 7 or 7.5 gigs. We don't know yet. Okay, next major OS is probably going to chew 8 gigs of RAM for all we know. And that'll be out sometime this coming year. They'll replace Sequoia with something else. Apple's getting pretty stupid on that part, but that's Apple. But with the machine-wise, though, you know, you got to have that RAM. You need RAM for games. You need RAM to run your computer. You need RAM for the video to run your stuff in your computer. And that is all separate pieces, right? Like the OS to the desktop, that's all your graphical interface, the way you see it, okay? So what you see there takes 6.83 gigabytes of RAM to the desktop. This gets you doing nothing. Then you want to use programs. Now you need RAM. Video editors even, compressors, they use a little bit of RAM to fire up, but it's when you start to make them work, that's when they chew more RAM, more processing power, more video power, more everything power. And yep, you need RAM for that. And you need the power too in the cores, right? And these programs, even iMovie uses your performance cores. It doesn't use efficiencies, okay? Your browser uses an efficiency. Calculator, efficiency. Activity monitor, efficiency. System profiler, efficiency. Cheesy crap uses efficiency. Anything else is going to be performance cores. I got a 4x4 here because it's an 8-core CPU, but it's 4 performance, 4 efficiencies. This thing will never play Cyberpunk, okay? It never will, because it doesn't have enough of anything to do it, okay? So, yeah, Cyberpunk will not be coming to the M1 series, at least in a Mini, or a MacBook Air for that matter, in an M1 chip, or an iMac for that matter. What else? I don't know. What else did we have for M1s? Not a lot, right? So M2s, the studios are going to be pretty promising, I think, and definitely the M4s are going to be promising, but you're going to have to buy an M4 Pro to get enough CPU cores, okay? Do we have enough video cores? Don't know. We're going to have to find out the full specs, and we don't get to know any of that until either just before the release date, according to the Cyberpunk people, or at the release date. Then we will know the full specs of Macs that we're going to need to run this at whatever, okay? So keep your money in your wallet for now, okay? And just be patient for 2025 for the rollout of any new games that Apple has. Because Cyberpunk's not the only one. There's a new sniper game coming out. Well, it's not. It's new to us, but it's been out on the market for a while. and there's a bunch of other games. There was like 10 new Mac games that I've seen so far, and I like the idea of the sniper game. And the sniper one is supposed to work on an M1, but do I have what it takes in an M1? Probably, but that'll get me a sniper game, but it's not going to get me cyberpunk unless I pony up probably anywhere between, I don't know, $3,000 to $9,000 to play cyberpunk, which is craziness. You can play it cheaper on a PC, okay? Because even to replace mine with a more than perfect system, and all I have to do is take the RAM and drives out of my laptop and put them in the new one, I'm talking just a $2,000 laptop for PC, and I will have more than enough to do this new version of Cyberpunk, and my current version of Cyberpunk will play even better because it's going to have already that graphics capability, and it's going to have everything else I need to get to the recommended. But to get to Ultra, no. To get to Ultra settings, all the way up the poop chute, ray tracing the whole nine. RAM, yeah, 64 gigs is going to cut it. That won't be a problem. But now we're talking a 16 gig graphics card. We're also talking, somewhere around 16 performance core processor at a bare minimal scrape of about 3 gigahertz minimum on the baseline, okay? So, yeah, it's pretty raunchy game when it gets really up there. So, just think about that for a bit, okay? Anyways, in the meantime, if you have questions, put them down below, because I'm probably sure I missed a few things. So if you have questions, put them down below. I'll do the best I can to answer them. And as per always, have a great one. See ya!